All right, neither of you guys has brought up Pulisic, but obviously we all agree he's in the mix. I want to ask Robbo, from a coaching perspective, when you have so many options, when you don't have a hierarchy, and they really don't, because we've also seen Werner on the bench at times. Does that in some way complicate things for other players on the team? Because if you were to play a big striker, or if you were to play Havertz, inevitably he's going to move differently from the way Werner does. Pulisic perhaps more direct than Hakim Ziyech. Ziyech maybe more creative. Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic and the adjustments that need to be made in other areas of the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing with Timo Werner up front, then you know that you're not going to play into his feet very often. You want him to run in behind, and he's going to try and stretch Manchester City, and then it means the other players can then come shorter to get the ball. I thought they did it brilliantly against Real Madrid in the very first game, the game in Madrid, where Timo Werner kept on making runs in behind, and Pulisic came short, and Mount came short, and they caused Real Madrid all sorts of problems. The centre-halves weren't quite sure whether to come out or whether to stay in, and that's going to be the same problem for Chelsea centre-backs. For Man City centre-backs. Do they go in with Pulisic, or if he plays in that role, do they go in with Mason Mount, or do they stay back? And that's the problem they had in the FA Cup semi-final. They weren't quite sure which one to do. And when they did go in, Timo Werner kept on running in behind them. So it all depends who plays up front, who's the main striker, what the other players have to do.
Kante is fit. I just want to get the two in central midfield out of the way. Do we think Kante, Jorginho, or Kante, Kovacic?
No, Kante, Jorginho. Jorginho is too important to build from the back to be able to play.
But I thought Jorginho was a source of all of Chelsea's evils, and every time they lose, it's his fault because he missed a penalty yonks ago, right?
Or he gave that poor bad pass against Arsenal. But I think Jorginho is so important in the way, especially with the ball. Without the ball, he could improve certainly on.
That's why you have three centre backs.
Yeah, but with the ball, you have to play him, and I think Kante is good. But I think Kovacic, like Pulisic, are huge impact players. I think this is going to be a very tactical final, and tactical often means defensive, and this might be defensive, not very sexy, not very open. And I think that if you get to 0-0 with 25 minutes to go, and if you can bring on Kovacic and Pulisic, I think this could be game changers completely. And City have also game changers that they can bring on, of course. But for me, Kovacic and Pulisic could make perfect impact subs if the score is still 0-0, or even if you're a goal behind.
Robbo, you're on board with that? You think he's going to go Kante, Jorginho?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a big job for Jorginho and Kante, because if Man City do play with sort of two holding midfield players, one of them could be Gundogan, but one holding midfield player and another one that likes to get forward, and then the likes of Silva and De Bruyne are playing as full centre forwards, it's going to be difficult for both the midfield players, Kante and Jorginho. Do they drop back with Silva and play that little bit deeper, or do they push on and the centre halves come out? So there's a massive organisational thing that Tuchel has to do. The understanding between the centre backs and the two holding midfield players has to be perfect. When to push on, when to drop off. That's going to be key to the way Chelsea play, I think.
All right, we're going to get to what happens at the back. I'm assuming left wing back. He's also, I think, in very, very good form as well. There's no question. Sorry, Marcos Alonso. It's going to be Chilwell on the left. On the right, there's a bit of an interesting dynamic, I think, because much to Jules' chagrin, we've seen Reece James at centre back and Azpilicueta at right back or right wing back in recent games. I'm going to suggest he's not going to do that in this game because you don't have the ball over the top super speedy threat. So you can play Christensen or somebody else in the back three and put Reece James at right back. So then my question is, well, is it Reece James at right back? Is it Azpilicueta to give you more defensive cover? Robbo?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The only reason I thought he played Reece James in the game against Leicester was to stop the runs of Vardy. But then he played him in the next game and played Azpilicueta as the right wing back. Azpilicueta isn't so good going forward. We know that as Reece James, because Reece James has got more energy. Azpilicueta is a better defender. I actually think he's going to go with exactly the same. I think he's now quite happy with James playing as the right-sided centre-half, and I think he's quite happy with Azpilicueta playing as the right wing-back, because he's going to have to do a lot of defending, whether it be against Foden, whether it be against the full-back getting forward at times. Azpilicueta has done a good job playing in that position, not so much going forward, but defensively, And I think he's going to stick with it again.
See, that's a good point, Jules, because if you have Reece James in the back three, you have another centre back who can step into the midfield and be comfortable passing. So if you want to do that, if you want to build from the back, that is the attractive option that Reece James get you. I suspect you don't like that.
I mean,
you want a real centre back.
I know there are different competitions and it was different time in the season, but the two games that they won against City in the FA Cup and in the league, he plays Azpilicueta as the third centre back and Reece James as the right wing back. And I cannot see why he would change that. You think that Reece James did well in that position? I think that he still has so much to learn, and I'm not sure he's ready for a Champions League final in that position against the City team that, like Robo was saying, if they play with the false number 9, it's so natural in a way, uncharacteristic, that you have to be really good at knowing exactly what to do, and I'm not sure Reece James is ready for that. He might be, and he might play great in the final if he plays in that position, but I would keep it exactly the way they did in those two games against City, Azpilicueta with Thiago Silva and Rudiger, and then Reece James on that sort of right wing back position.
Yeah, that does kind of change the dynamic, doesn't it?
Having watched Chelsea recently and been at Wembley when they have played in the games, Thiago Silva is almost pushing Reece James and he's pushing Rudiger in to go and pick up people and get tight. And Thiago Silva's almost playing as a sweeper at the moment. You know, when you watch it on TV, you can't always see it. When you're at the games, you can see that he's pushing the other two in and he's dropping off. And he did it brilliantly on occasions in both games, just playing as a sweeper. And that's what I think he'll do again. He pushes Rudiger to try and mark in front of the centre forward or go and push in against De Bruyne, it could be, and he would just drop off and fill the spaces. So that's going to be a key issue again.
How cool would that be if Tuchel throws us that curveball and goes man-to-man, Rudiger on De Bruyne and Reece James or Christensen or whoever on Bernardo Silva?
In that game at the Etihad, that's what Rudiger pretty much did, and it was good. And Marcos Alonso, it was good. But the key as well would be how City's press will be effective or not against, again, the build-up play from Chelsea, because in the FA Cup semi-final they went clearly man marking. Everybody had a man to go and do that press, and the one moment where someone is late on Mount, then they have the counter attack, and then it's the goal Werner for Ziyech, and they say so that man-to-mark press is great, but he has to be perfect every time, because the one time it's not perfect, and someone like Mount or Jorginho has half a second of freedom, it's too late then. So it'd be very interesting to see.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.